a system approaching perfection.
We'll walk deeper into the belly of the beast if it means I'm able to...
All right, guys, this is Danny at The Crypto Show, and we are here with the most famous bowl cut in cryptocurrency, Mo from the Three Stooges. Tone Vays. No, but he's not famous for anything else. No one knows anything about him for trading or anything. But no, I'm kidding. I love Tone. I hate his haircut, but he's a good guy. So we're here to talk about how come Dash is so much more badass than Dash. Than BTC.
You know what? Try to speak up because my mic is in between us. I know your mic is here. We're dual streaming this. So this is both an episode of the Crypto Show and also one of Tone Vays's On the Records on my YouTube channel. So this is going to be interesting. We got two hosts. Danny here is going to be more of the neutral moderator as we're going to debate the relevance and soundness of Dash and
Nice.
How does it compete in the world of crypto and why I think it's now I do call Dash a bit of a scam, though to be honest,
A bit of a scam?
well,
No, be honest.
oh well, relatively speaking to the most of the ICOs, it's not as bad. It's not as bad. Okay, but we're gonna get into all that. But let us introduce.
I can sleep better now.
So go ahead and introduce our guest because you're more familiar
I'm
with
Danny with the Crypto Show, and we all know Joe Valenzuela, and everybody knows Bowl Cut Tone.
Also known as BCT.
BCT.
Yeah,
What
just
is-
abbreviated, Boca Tone.
Yeah. No, I want to be fair here. I like picking on Tone. I mean, I've known him for quite a while, and I always joke with him. So, anyway, let's get into it. Tell us.
All right.
Tell us
Well,
why
let's
Dash.
introduce our
Joe Valenzuela of Dash Force News.
All right. So let's start with what is Dash Force News and how does it mesh with the whole Dash ecosystem? Because I'm not too familiar with the inner workings of the political structures of everything, right? Because there are so many cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin went through its political debacle, and now we have people that think some nonsense is Bitcoin. So talk about Dash Force News and what it is.
Yeah, so Dash Force News is a news website that I help run, which is part of a group called Dash Force. So I work for Dash. The Dash.
How do you work for Dash?
This is one of the coolest parts to explain, especially to people who don't have any knowledge of real cryptocurrency, for example. But this is Dash is a decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO. It's, as far as I know,
You don't want to use that term. That didn't end well.
as far as I know, Dash is the first DAO. So it's the cheap imitation on the Ethereum blockchain. No hate, but hate. That didn't end so well. So Dash is, I would say, probably the first, and no one has contested. It's been written about a bunch of times, the first DAO. No one's ever said, no, actually, we were first. So as a decentralized autonomous organization, it means it's open participation to anyone. You can't keep people out from taking part of it. It's self-running, and yet it can still come to consensus and act as one thing. So I like to use the ominous example of like the Borg. It's like all one. It's like a collective consciousness hive mind type thing, but there's no coercion. There's no upper echelon controlling everything. It's like a blob. You kind of plug into it. It's like a living, breathing. Like if Bitcoin's a natural resource, Dash is a natural resource that can make decisions.
Okay, and how do you earn a living?
I get paid by the Dash network. So here's Bitcoin. Miners run the Bitcoin network, most of it, and they get paid all of the new Bitcoin in fees that are created. Dash has that 45-45-10 split. 45% is miners. 45% goes to masternodes, which are a second layer that allow some extra cool stuff. And then 10% is left to a treasury, which is just, it's available to be created to, originally it was to fund development after the Dash Foundation didn't work out so well. But it can be anything that the Dash network votes on to fund. And where that comes...
How do you vote?
So masternodes are the second layer, and there's about 4,800 or so of them. They have 1,000 Dash to prove that they are incentivized, they have skin in the game, and what they do is they can use their masternode keys to vote on proposals. Someone can use a 5 Dash spam fee, anti-spam fee, to submit any proposal. Anyone can submit any proposal, they just have to have 5 Dash and it goes in there. Masternodes vote, and net 10% of them, so 480 and no votes, or 580 and 100 no votes, for example, and then the money gets created and gets sent to exactly the address specified.
So you have to pay 5 Dash to vote on how to spend money.
No, 5 Dash to ask for money.
But you lose the 5 Dash to
Yeah.
ask for money.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a risk in case you can't just keep spamming up the network asking for money all the time for something that no one's voting for.
And where does the $5 go? 5 Dash go?
It
Should be
it
$5.
gets
But
burned.
where does the 5 Dash go?
Well, it used to be like $25, $30 back when I first started getting into Dash, but anyway, now it's a little bit more. But it just gets burned.
Okay. It just gets burned.
Yeah.
Why do you burn money?
Well, scarcity.
So you're destroying Dash.
Oh, a little bit.
I know the burning of money never made sense to me. It's kind of like the communist system of overproduction of shoes and then you burn the shoes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the same thing happens a lot in Bitcoin when people lose their private keys. I mean, think about how much money Satoshi burned.
Yeah, but
That stuff is gone forever.
But that's accidental stupidity versus like forced stupidity by the network.
Well, I have an idea to solve Bitcoin's problem. We could make transactions reversible, say, because if they were reversible, or if you have a centralized entity was able to come in and say, Satoshi's not using this money, it's obviously lost, let's all come together and reverse that transaction and then bring the money back, and so it's not destroyed
So
anymore.
do you want that to happen in Bitcoin? No. Because like, to be honest with you, I think it'll be good. I think eventually, miners would be nice to put uncirculated Bitcoin back into circulation. The reality of the situation, however, that people would lose confidence in Bitcoin and the fact that it was so easy to reverse. So,
Yeah.
all right, so let's see, where do we begin?
Works great for Ethereum.
Debatable if it worked great for Ethereum. Well, we'll see about that. But I do want to break this conversation down into parts. I want to talk about the economic side of Dash. I want to talk about the technological side of Dash and the regulatory side of Dash, with centralization being part of the regulatory side, because the more you're centralized, the more you're regulatable. Okay, so I guess let's start with, well, where do you want to start? Economics or technicals?
It doesn't matter. It's up to you.
So let's go with the economics, all right? So why do you think the world needs an additional cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is not enough? Or what is the problem with Bitcoin that you think Dash is going to cut into Bitcoin's use cases?
Yeah, so first, what do you think Bitcoin's use case is?
To me, Bitcoin has 2 primary use cases. One, it's an unconfiscatable store of value.
All right.
And 2, it is censorship-resistant value transfer.
Yeah.
Which the more censorship resistance you need, the more you should look at Bitcoin for that transaction. And the least censorship resistance you need, the less you should look at Bitcoin for that transaction. So buying a pizza with Bitcoin is not all that important, but sending donations to WikiLeaks probably is.
Yeah, so to break that down, and there's not that much I can disagree on that, is you want something that can store your value, which is your hard work. You work hard, you retain value, and money is a way of storing value. You store it, and no one can mess with that. And then you send it, because if you store it and you can't send it, then who cares? And then they cannot mess with the sending thereof. And so absolutely that's a great way of a great use case for Bitcoin. Now, how did Bitcoin ever decide to be a store of value? Who decided it could store value?
Nobody.
Where does the value come from?
Confidence. Confidence in the people that Bitcoin is worthy of the store of value.
Yeah. How did it earn the worthiness?
It earned it by being stable. It earned it by being stable, and it also earned it so I think the user-activated soft fork brought a lot of confidence into the space, because it showed that the miner centralization doesn't matter and that the users of Bitcoin have more authority. It also brings confidence in the fact that even Visa went down in Europe for like 24 hours recently, and Bitcoin continues to function. And the price of Bitcoin continues to go up. I mean, yeah, there is a year here and there when it drops, but the price as a store of value continues to rise. And the respect of the core developers working on Bitcoin, their past history, and the fact that Bitcoin has almost no bugs on its underlying layer, other than Mike Hearn's genius coding skills, brought in a bug back in 2013 that kind of forked Bitcoin for a minute, and it was able to, right the course after that. So the competency in development, the continued rise in price, and it will earn respect and confidence over time.
Yeah, so it seems like the rise in price is almost like an after effect of a good solid product, which is something that works as advertised. It does exactly what you think it's going to do. It's not going to change. You're not going to be like, well, tomorrow, all of a sudden, it's all AML KYC. All of a sudden, they're registering your Bitcoins. You have to in order to use it. That's not going to change. It's all there. No one's going to say, well, now there's double the Bitcoins tomorrow. There's just going to be, that doesn't change either.
So the fact that is so unlikely to happen is what gives Bitcoin its confidence. Now, Dash and its voting system seems to change the rules very easily and very quickly, which tells me that anything is up for grabs, including the total number of Dash, which, by the way, is different than in the original proposal. In the original proposal, had Dash at 84 million, and then it lowered to the same as Bitcoin after the Instamine, which we may or may not get into here, but for now, we're just talking about economics.
Yeah, so let's get back to what makes things money, right? So for an economic system, you have to have money and a trade clearing system, right? So for example, gold is money. How do you spend gold? You can't really cut off a little nug of it, and you have to have a metallurgist actually weigh it and stuff. So you'd have to have, for example, a bank issuing gold certificates that allows you to clear trade easily, or you have a gold-backed debit card these days.
Right. Or e-gold tried to centralize that process, and it ended badly.
Yes, of course. So usually you have two different things. There have been some times in history where trade clearing and money have intersected. For example, coinage, to where the actual coin itself is a trade clearing mechanism and it's the money itself. And
that's what Bitcoin is.
Yeah, that's what Bitcoin sort of used to be. It's not an effective trade clearing mechanism. You cannot rely on it to be used.
I've always pretty much gotten my important transactions through.
Yes. So how many transactions qualify under important and how many don't? Or rather, that means that I kind of scammed two people in the crypto space. You might know their names. Juan Gold. Oh yeah, I know that guy.
And Chris Guda.
Yeah.
I scammed them both for an alcoholic drink because I paid them in $5 in Bitcoin because they bought me drinks in Colombia during the spam attacks on the Bitcoin network. Yeah. And those transactions never cleared and they bounced back. So I scammed them on an alcoholic beverage.
Yes. So here's the full disclosure of my history. I'm a not quite recovered Bitcoin maximalist myself. I heard about Bitcoin back in 2012 or something. Started using it in 2013. I thought this was amazing for most of the reasons you just described. And I started making as much of my income as I could in Bitcoin as possible since 2013. 2015, I stopped accepting fiat as a means of payment. I went all Bitcoin. And early 2016, I closed my bank account and it was just all Bitcoin, all Bitcoin, all Bitcoin. Using it for my money and for my trade clearing, right? And then late 2016, that second element of Bitcoin that I sort of thought was part of the first, right? The trade clearing thing started to not work as well. I couldn't get my transactions through in the same amount of time. The fees started to go up. A lot of the things I needed to spend Bitcoin on started to become outside the price range of fees.
Right, but there are, so a couple of things there. So one of them is, you can't have unlimited storage, and Bcash will learn that lesson sooner or later, hopefully sooner than later. The other thing is Bitcoin was under attack. Bitcoin was under attack because it was too popular. And when something is too popular, people want to attack it. So all that spam on Bitcoin was to prevent SegWit. And after SegWit got in, all that spam continued to be there because it takes time for companies to upgrade to SegWit. So the malicious players were, taking advantage of that. They continued to spam SegWit because remember, SegWit got in pretty much in July, and Bcash forked off in August, and SegWit penetration did not reach 30% until later that year. And SegWit penetration now is 40 to 50% because Coinbase and Zappo eventually added SegWit. We're still missing BitPay and blockchain.info, one of the biggest payment processors and statistically the biggest wallet, are still not on SegWit. Now, the reasons are simple. BitPay is a wholly owned subsidiary of Bitmain that continues to hate Bitcoin and Core. And blockchain.info, one of their biggest investors is Roger Ver, who continues to hate Core and Bitcoin, right? So there's a reason why they haven't joined. Once SegWit penetration reached 30%, it became very expensive to spam Bitcoin. So ever since then, I've been able to send all of my transactions at 1 to 2 Satoshis per byte for the last few months, other than yesterday, which again was a borderline special case, and the hackers were willing to spend 0.1 Bitcoin transaction fee to move their 0.4 Bitcoin theft. So they didn't care. And again, if SegWit was 90% penetration today, even that would not have happened. So people continue to undermine Bitcoin for personal gain, and yes, it's a young, maturing currency.
I have a question. So
go.
What is the transaction volume like now versus what it was in December? So how can we prove that SegWit and Lightning are actually assisting the network if we can't compare it to the volume that was happening during December and January? I mean, everybody can say SegWit is making everything cheap now, but how do we know that? Because we don't have the same volume.
Well, what do you define volume? I mean, let's remove traders from the equation. Let's try to focus on actual transactions, right? So when the price of Bitcoin was reaching its all-time highs for $20,000, like the spam had stopped. And I'm calling it spam. We can debate if it's spam or not.
Well, they're simply transactions.
I can personally prove that it was spam, and here's how. I thought that Bcash was not gonna amount to anything. Okay, you can say I was wrong, that's fine. Okay, I had no intention of pulling out my Bcash and selling it for Bitcoin. But when Bcash was 10% of the value of a Bitcoin, I said I'm gonna take the free money. I'm gonna sell all of my Bcash and I'm gonna increase my Bitcoin savings by 10%. In order for me to completely convert all of my Bcash into Bitcoin, I had to go into cold storage from 2013. Something I had no intention of touching for years and years and years to come. I locked those coins away in 2013. They're almost like virgin coins. They have literally, I created a wallet, I moved my own Bitcoin. No one knew that public key. I had a public key, I moved some Bitcoin in 2013, I locked it up, I was happy that I remembered the password, made sure that I can get to them, whatever. But I opened that wallet, there was 1 to 3 transactions in that wallet where I funded my cold storage in 2013. And then I saw 2 additional transactions from May of 2017 during the height of the spam attacks that added 2 transactions of 1 Satoshi each into my public key, which nobody knew but me. And those 1 Satoshi inputs were gigantic in kilobyte space.
All right.
They were straight up spam that was maliciously put into old addresses that people must have thought, hey, this address has not been active in 4 years, it's probably lost, it's probably dead, no one is going to notice this. And my address from 4 years ago was spammed in 2017. So it was straight up spam.
So we're talking conditions now that
and the reason it was spammed is because Bitcoin is popular and everybody wants to destroy it for personal gain of altcoins.
And that unfortunately did kind of cut into Bitcoin's stability, because Bitcoin was a stable store of value and a stable trade clearing mechanism. And for whatever you want to call the spike in transactions, or whatever you call spam, or any, it's actually completely irrelevant what it was. But Bitcoin was not stable anymore as far as the trade clearing part of it, the transactional aspect of it did not work as advertised anymore. So to a certain extent, yeah, I kind of got, Bitcoin kind of scammed me in a pretty big way.
How did it scam you? I've paid $100 transaction fee because I had to do a I had to get a transaction in at the worst possible time.
Yes.
It pissed me off, but it needed to get done.
Yeah.
And I understand why that happened.
So here's how it happened. Bitcoin, according to as far back as the white paper, meant to be a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Bitcoin.org, the Bitcoin core team, who not a lot of people dispute, I don't know if you're one of them, but most people don't dispute that they're as much as you can get to an official coders of Bitcoin.
I'm not going to dispute that.
Yeah. Their run website boasted that Bitcoin had fast transactions and extremely low fees, much lower than traditional payment processors, etc. I saw this stuff. I was like, wow, this is cool. I really want to use this stuff. And so I put my personal life in a certain amount of risk in order to try this stuff out, because I really got taken in. This is an amazing technology. I want to use this. And then it wasn't as explicitly advertised. And
right, but
in a very big way. And so,
but it's because it's like you're being upset. You can't get a seat at a restaurant because it's too popular.
If it's advertised as you will be able to get a seat at this restaurant, that would be something to be upset over. If there's no guarantees.
But Bitcoin is decentralized. No one can guarantee anything.
Unfortunately, in that case, that cut into its stability. Its stability, just like the price goes up and down based on what markets decide and things like that. Its use as a money, as one of the two main, mixing the terms here, use as a trade clearing mechanism, ended up not being stable because of that. And so, if whoever told me it was going to be cheap scammed me. That doesn't mean Bitcoin did, but it ended up being used as part of a scam in my life.
Okay, and that led you to Dash.
Yes, because there was no Bitcoin Cash at the time, and that doesn't mean that I would have switched over if there was time. But I came to the fork in the road. Pardon the pun, right? The hard fork in the road, where it says, I decided I don't like government issued money. I don't like the stuff that central banks have done. I want to do my part in living off of that and getting outside and exiting what I believe to be a bigger scam. So I did that, and it worked for a little while, for a couple of years. It didn't work anymore. I can either give up, go back, reopen my bank account, switch all my Bitcoin over to fiat, or I could keep trying to live this experiment on one of Bitcoin's children, which, to a certain extent, I still believe to be Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin is more than just the one chain. Bitcoin is the revolutionary world-changing technology. Right. And also, a lot of the most successful cryptocurrencies are based directly on Bitcoin. So that was the only thing that I could even remotely try to live all off of. And so right now, I believe it's the only cryptocurrency that's really feasible to live completely off of, unless you have a bunch of extra special tricks. But so that's what kind of got me into Dash.
All right, so let's stick to the economic side before we move on to the technical side.
Sure.
Have you read the book or know of a book, The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous?
No, it's pretty new.
It's pretty new. It got released a few months ago. The audio came out earlier this month.
Yeah.
So check that out. So he talks about how the store of value is by far the most superior property of any currency, and the world gravitates to a single store of value because it's more efficient. So I have always said that going to having a world of multiple cryptocurrencies is no different than a world of inflationary fiat, because all you're doing is diluting the 21 million Bitcoin that gives it that hard quantity. So not only is Bitcoin the most secure blockchain, it is also limited. Now we can debate whether Satoshi should have kept Bitcoin at 21 million, or something like Monero did, and Peter Todd explained this to me really well, that hey, Bitcoin might have been better served by having 50 Bitcoin per block, every block, for the rest of time, because then there is no weird scenario of, oh, my mining operation just makes half the profit tomorrow versus today every 4 years, and 50 new Bitcoins in 50 years compared to the current number of Bitcoins in existence is very, very small. It's infinitely inflationary in terms of the number of Bitcoin, but
on a very small scale.
But on a smaller, but on a decelerating scale, right? So let's ignore that aspect of it, right? The general idea is additional altcoins dilute the concept of sound money. How do you see that?
Well, let me, before I get to the actual debate on that point, I like to point out that if that is true, Bitcoin has absolutely failed as a store of value. Think about it.
Go on.
How many coins are there in existence
right now?
Yeah.
Too many.
How many got forked from Bitcoin? How easy is it to fork a coin off of Bitcoin?
Too easy.
Well, take it up with Satoshi, because he kind of designed a failed product if that was what it was supposed to be, one coin and other coins detract from its store of value, because it's so easy to do.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that. I don't mind the free market here. Well, I agree with Seyfuddin Ammous, the PhD Austrian economist, that the world will gravitate to the store of value. And the more that store of value can be used as a currency, they're not going to need anything else. So one of his great arguments, and I haven't heard this.
So
he
sorry to interrupt, but it's not that you think that you think that over time it's a good idea to generally try to use one. There's nothing wrong with 1 million coins as long as we try to, and you think that'll happen naturally, that we try to go to one standard of value. Is that it?
Right.
All
So here's one of his best examples that I've never actually seen any other economist explain. The reason why silver became more like a lot of people here, we're at PorcFest, a lot of people here are big silver bugs more than gold bugs, right? And we always hear, people like Big Sweer, people like Max Kaiser, Gregory Monterino, if you know who he is. All these guys are like silver, right? Because, and I have a background in geology, and it's pretty clear that the ratio of silver to gold on the Earth is approximately 17 or 20 to 1, right? And historically, the value of silver was about 17 to 20 to 1 to gold. Not Bitcoin, sorry, to gold.
So
right?
interchangeable. It's an easy mistake to make, right?
And he explained so well why the price ratio of silver to gold now hovers between 40 and 80, and will probably and why it got that way, and why it will continue to separate. And he explained it really well. He said back in the day, you can only subdivide gold so much.
Yeah.
A gram of gold was pretty much as low as you can get. And because gold was precious, there were things that you needed to pay for that 1 gram of gold was too much.
Yeah.
So you needed a subdivisible currency. But when technology advanced and you were able to subdivide a gram of gold with fiat, even like a gold-backed fiat.
So you're making an argument for altcoins right now.
No. I'm making an argument against altcoins.
Let him finish. This is good stuff.
When you were able to subdivide gold to the micro level because of technology and fiat and computers, silver was no longer necessary for small transactions.
Yeah.
Because you can subdivide gold enough. And that's why silver lost all of its speculative value. And when the government of the US in the late 1800s tried to force silver as a currency, it created this distortion and another financial crisis, because people realized oh my God, the government is artificially raising the price of silver. We're gonna sell it for gold, because you didn't need silver to subdivide.
Yeah.
And this is the thing with Bitcoin. as the technology of Bitcoin continues to progress with Lightning and other means, you can subdivide Bitcoin to a point where economically, you don't need Litecoin, you don't need Dash. Bitcoin will be able to handle all the microtransactions, and people will gravitate to that. And all of the, and I see here a PorkFest where people are incentivized to take Dash because the Dash is printing money for themselves, which we might get to, is rewarding people for accepting Dash. And it's like forcing people to keep Dash as a store of value. But it's an inferior store of value because Bitcoin will meet the micropayment structure. And all of the people that have migrated to Dash because there was a month where Bitcoin was hard to use as a transactional currency, they've migrated to Dash and they've mistakenly using Dash for store of value, which will disappear. And I'm worried for the people here that are incentivized to use Dash as a store of value. Using it, they're incentivized to use Dash as a transactional currency, but they're too lazy to convert it into something more sound, and their savings will disappear.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that because that really reminds me, interesting you threw Litecoin in there too, because back in, before the end of last year, Litecoin was basically going the dustbin of history. It was created as a silver to Bitcoin's gold, and as people realize, hey, Bitcoin's infinitely subdividable, or almost infinitely, that we don't need this lesser kind of Litecoin, this just as doing the exact same thing as Bitcoin, but just being easier to divide. Like, no one really cared because Bitcoin actually works. So it was on its way out. It was on its way to extinction until Bitcoin's ability to be subdivided became compromised, in that now if you have $5, $10, $20 or whatever worth in a wallet, the transaction fee to move that would eat it up, so it's effectively not able to be transacted in those levels.
And even I added Litecoin donations to my, I have removed them since, right? But during the spam attacks, I added Lightning donations because it's not even that I needed the money. It wasn't about that. It was because I understand how Bitcoin transactions work. In that the more inputs you have, the harder it is to move the money, which was Roger Ver's big problem. And in addition to that, what a lot of people don't realize, and it's a flaw in Bitcoin, which is not fixable. In that, and it's a flaw in all cryptos, especially Ethereum and Ripple. It's just unreasonably dumb. Is that in order to move your Bitcoin, the transaction is calculated as Satoshi per byte. And while I initially thought that you can subdivide a Satoshi, well, one Bitcoin is divided by 100 million. What's the big deal? Just subdivided by a few billion. I was informed by computer scientists, no, that's not actually possible because you're reaching computer science limits. The calculation of a transaction fee is in Satoshis per byte. So that means when the value of one Bitcoin goes from $1,000 to $20,000, your transaction fee goes up 20 times because the value of one Satoshi in US dollars has just gone up 20 times. There is nothing you can do about this. And this is why second layer solutions have to happen, because by default, when one Bitcoin is $10 million, one Satoshi is a significant sum, and your fee is calculated in Satoshis per byte.
So
no matter how big the blocks are.
So we're getting to the point where we hit that point where you couldn't subdivide any to a certain extent, as in it was uneconomical to do so. So then you have to go back to using the silver, and then that kind of falls by the wayside when the exact same thing, side by side, a silver to gold kind of thing doesn't pan out in the long term. Now, the reason it should be the opposite. It should be you start out with division problems, and over time technology improves, and then the Litecoin coin becomes less useful over time. But Litecoin accidentally became super useful by Bitcoin's lack of usefulness during a certain period.
I wouldn't call it useful. So I actually didn't finish why I added the Litecoin donation. I added it because people continued to donate like $1, $2 worth of Bitcoin to me. And by them donating $1 worth of Bitcoin, they were costing me like $5 to then move my donation wallet, right? So I almost added it to like, no, I don't want you. Your $1 donation is costing me money. right?
Yeah.
So I added it
Just
for
to stop
that
the
reason.
bleed, stop them from messing up your
Correct.
Bitcoin.
Do what I do.
That is a
Never
pretty
open
funny.
that wallet.
That is a pretty funny story. Yeah. So the problem is Bitcoin ran into problems in its whole trade clearing side. It just did not work.
I agree. It was too popular. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
It did
sorry
not-
Bitcoin was too popular, guys.
Yeah.
I really am.
Yeah, it ran into, and obviously too is a relative term. Too popular for over a certain amount of people to use at a certain amount. Too popular for 400,000 transactions on chain.
Right, because
During that time.
because the underlying technology is just not there yet.
Yes.
And a lot of people complain that Bitcoin moves too slow. Well, that's because it's too important.
Yes, and
You
so
can't break things.
One thing that's been pretty heavily correlated with that has been the drop in Bitcoin dominance of the market. It used to be all these other things are fun tech to play with, but Bitcoin's the real deal, and that's kind of what I signed up for. As what I was using, I was like, I'm interested in seeing these other experiments.
I agree. I worry about those people that are storing their life savings in alternatives, because eventually Bitcoin will get back to 90% dominance.
Well, that's the thing, is the dominance has been going down and down and down as the trade clearing side of it has become uncompetitive. And this has been going on for a long time. It's not just been the few months. It got really bad during those months, but I was having trouble paying for stuff in late 2016, like summer, fall 2016, and that's about when I started to get into Dash. When it started, and obviously the richer you are, like I was not very
I had
rich.
an 8-day
I was making
transaction
like
back then.
15 grand a year or something. I was like, not because I was trying to live off of Bitcoin, roughing it, do that whole thing. I did not have the bandwidth to pay several dollar fees, where a lot of people did for years afterwards. So that whole time span, and even up to, you know, maybe a month ago, or even a few weeks, I haven't checked, but that whole time I was not able to use Bitcoin as a trade clearing mechanism, only as a store of value. And so the problem is you have all these other coins, or I mean, there's not many that I respect too much, but whatever. There's a bunch of ones that do just what Bitcoin does, but then they do, in terms of it's all set up in the same way that will effectively and uncensorably store value. But then you have a trade clearing mechanism where it does both, where you don't run into that brick wall. And if Bitcoin had never had a problem with its trade clearing, if it could just keep on sending at that point, there never would be, no one would ever be talking about, oh, this other coin does this thing, this other coin does this thing. The problem is it hit a problem. And so, and it's still in that problem zone. And there's a bunch of stuff that's being developed. We have to see exactly where that comes from. The problem is what we're competing against is the payments industry is not the money industry. And cryptocurrency is a bit of both. It's money and it's a payments technology. And so, for example, Bitcoin, you send a transaction, it is not to be trusted until about 10 minutes later, until you have at least one on blockchain confirmation. Then it's secure, then it's cool. When you just broadcast it immediately, it can be double spent, it's not for sure. And so, for example, now you have Dash, where you can actually have that as good as confirmed in 1.3 seconds. And so now the payments, it's not going to be more secure after it's on blockchain, but for all practical purposes, the trade clearing part of it has gotten improved. So now you have a technology that's competing as a payment system as well as money. And because cryptocurrencies happen to be both, I mean, which by the way, if you got a shift card or something, Bitcoin is just a store of value and just money and not a trade clearing. You're using the shift card to clear your trades, to actually do the payment. So under that circumstance, you could be, oh, we're competing on crypto debit cards. And by the way, in that world, I would probably not care about Dash that much, because why wouldn't you just go Bitcoin? Why wouldn't you just go the number one money?
Well, we're getting into
that?
the technological side of things, because look, Bitcoin has been super user tested.
Yes.
And we don't know if any altcoin, including Dash, can hold up under the scrutiny that Bitcoin has faced for 5 years.
Yeah.
We don't know.
that-
Like, it's great that Dash is clearing transactions in 3 seconds. If every single Bitcoin transaction spam went through Dash, you have no idea what can and cannot break.
Yeah, which is a great challenge for people to actually test that.
And this continues to give Bitcoin more confidence that it weathered that storm. Sure, it
Yeah.
lost, some people did not have the patience and some people went to an inferior store of value for their transactions. But I don't think the Bitcoin maximalists like myself care all that much. Like, I don't really care what people use for their transactions. What I care about is what are people storing their value in. If you tell me I accept Dash, but the moment I can convert it to Bitcoin, that's where I store my money, I got no problem with that. None. What worries me is because Dash and Zcash and a lot of these other operations, they have, you know, they funnel money into a centralized organization that promotes their currency. They might promote it under the pretense of we're a better transactional currency. But in reality, they secretly want people to store their value in that currency because they know that everything comes from that.
I'd object just under the, it's not so secret. Or at least for Dash, it's not secret. Yeah, they want people, Dash by and large wants people to use it to transact and store value in it.
And that's what scares me. What scares me is people storing their value in inferior stores of value. And while I did not think that was true for silver, I now think that after reading Seyfedin's book, as he explained it to me as to why silver is an inferior, like grossly inferior store of value compared to gold.
Yeah, well, what we're seeing is...
How about
yes.
how and how not is Dash centralized in the way it's funneling money?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the centralization of Dash. Well, what do you think of the Dash Foundation?
I don't think of it. It doesn't really exist anymore.
It fell apart.
Yeah, it's not really a thing.
Do they think they're a thing?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, who decides where... So, okay, so let's start with... so we're moving into slightly technological thing. So I think that because only 45% of your blockchain is being mined, you're 55% less secure than a 100% mineable blockchain.
I would say no. I understand, but what you're saying is something I agree with, but no. Here, let me explain that. As in, there's 55% less money going to support proof of work mining. That is absolutely true. The difference is, first off, do you feel that, for example, Bitmain and all them, that them getting all the profits makes Bitcoin more secure? Would you want them to have more money?
Well, Bitmain makes most of its money by selling the shovels, not by using the shovels, right?
Okay.
So Bitmain makes the majority of its money by selling the miners.
Antpool and the other major mining pools.
Well, anybody can be on Antpool, including myself. I choose not to be on Antpool for political reasons. So my miner is on Slushpool for political reasons, right?
Yes, of
but
course.
Anybody could be on Antpool, right?
Yeah.
So Bitmain, for the time being, did a very good job of creating very efficient mining hardware. Now, before Bitmain, Bitfury was the ASIC god.
Yeah,
and
of
at
course.
one point, Bitfury actually hit 51% before Bitmain came into, like, you know, their dominance, right? And now Bitmain is facing a lot of competition, and this is what capitalism is. And people can choose any pool they like, and as much as I don't like the fact that Bitmain is making a lot of money, they did it fairly, and I can't complain about that.
Yeah, so then to conclude that, you think that more miners, therefore, or more money to incentivizing Bitcoin's mining structure makes it more secure?
I think that the fact that Satoshi programmed Bitcoin to have every 4 years, and we have halved in less than 4 years the prior 3 times, is proof that Bitcoin is very secure. Like, I will get worried if a halving cycle takes longer than 4 years, right? Because Bitcoin started in January of 2009. So if everything worked out according to plan, we should have halved in January of 2014, but we didn't. We halved in like November of, so not January, so we should have halved in January of 2013, but we halved in like November of 2012. And after that, the next halving came even sooner, right? The last halving came in July. Like, a halving needs to be every 4 years in January, because the first block was mined January 3rd. And the last block halving was in July. If the next block halving is later than July, and this is the one time it could actually be later than July, because Bcash took a significant amount of hashing power from Bitcoin, and guess what? Bitcoin is still on track to halve in less than 4 years, considering how much hash power moved to Bcash. If that hashing power comes back to Bitcoin, god damn, Bitcoin is gonna have in like 3 years instead of 4. This shows you how much demand there is for mining. And when something like Dash removes that capitalistic opportunity and hands that money over to the early adopters, I think that's terrible. You're just enriching the early adopters and rich people.
I think I must have missed a step in that whole thing, because I understand.
Can I get like a simple?
Yeah, jump in there.
Why it is centralized from you and why it's not centralized
All
from
right,
you.
so get rid of the halvening thing. All right. So first off, on the security of the actual network. Unfortunately, it seems like with proof of work coins, there's a little bit of a security flaw, because you can find a way to control a large amount of hash power, such as Bitfury did, such as Antpool and others now control a significant, although not nearly that significant, amount of hash power, and that can be used to compromise the network. Now, back in the good part about having a second layer is now you have two different things you can compromise. So for example, let's take Bitcoin Cash. Say they get a massive amount of mining hash power, say more than, I have not been keeping track on it, I assume it's less than Bitcoin Core.
No one cares, but go on.
Yes, but it's more, well, there we go. At least I'm in good company there, right? But assume enough people mine, what was it, SHA-256 coins, to where there's enough mining hash power to 51% the Bitcoin attack network. And there's people that have no economic incentive to protect Bitcoin because they don't have any. They have all these other shit coins, right? And so they're all mining these shit coins that happen to have the same mining system as Bitcoin. And then they say, you know what? Bitcoin's sitting up there and is messing with our profits because they're being all digital gold and stuff, and we just need to get rid of it. They can 51% attack the network, start reversing transactions, destroy the trust in Bitcoin, and they don't have to actually lose out with anything. Wouldn't it be a little bit more advantageous to have a good chunk of the network have to actually be associated with Bitcoin holders in order to allay that fear? So for example, if you wanted to reverse an instant send transaction, you would need not only 51% of the hash power, but 51% of the master nodes. And at 2,400 master nodes, 2,500 let's say, that's a whole lot of actual Dash you have to now have in order to control. You can't just spin up a bunch of nodes and Sybil attack that way. You have to actually be significantly invested in Dash, which, as any economist will tell you, will significantly drive up the price. And now all of a sudden, you're committing a giant economic suicide by attacking the network you just heavily invested in. So it's a second security countermeasure against attacks, and that makes it, in my view, and obviously Dash is still mainly a proof of work coin, so it still mainly has the problems, or I wouldn't say problems, it mainly has the setup that Bitcoin does. But in having a dual sort of system, you actually have much greater security than having just one. For example, there's been a lot of talk of the concept of collateralized mining, or either requiring or encouraging some kind of a having of collateral in order to keep mining, so then you don't have someone from another chain that doesn't care just switching in mining power and attacking. So I think that it makes it actually, by that, it's not that Dash is not investing enough in security. I think it's actually the opposite. It's investing enough and investing more wisely in security.
It's a very good point, actually. You make a good point.
Oh, thanks.
Now, so here's my minor rebuttal.
I see what you did there.
So So it's a good point, and it perhaps it's necessary for Dash. Here's why it's not necessary for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the gold standard of store of value. So Bitcoin doesn't actually have to worry about a 51% attack, because the reason why coins get 51% attacked, like Zencash did recently, and I think B-Gold and some other coin I never heard of. Verge. Right, I heard of Verge. There's another one I never heard of, Mono or something.
Yeah,
Mono
Monocoin. Some Japanese thing, I think.
The reason why that happens is because when you can move your hash power from something more useful and more valuable, you move it over to an inferior coin. You 51% attack it. You steal the coins because of the 51% attack. And guess what? You're going to convert them into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So, and like...
Or by the way, there is a economic incentive to attack a coin and not steal coins. Not necessary to stop from stealing coins, but the advantage could just be destroying a chain you don't like.
So, right. But it has to be, you can't attack a more superior coin. Does that make sense? Like,
is that from a technological or an economic perspective?
Both.
So what's the...
Well, economic, mostly.
Yeah, so what's that
like, for example, like what other coins use Bitcoin's algorithm, right, besides Bcash, right?
Dash, I believe, is based off of Bitcoin. Oh, I mean, mining algorithm.
Right. Like
Unbreakable coin.
Namecoin is the only one I could think of.
Uses Bitcoin? Oh, no, that was Bird. That Namecoin wasn't Namecoin POS, and then they screwed it, and then they proved why POS can't work, and now they're merge mined.
It was mining with Bitcoin.
It was
right. It's merge mined because Namecoin was proof that POS is garbage. So that's not a good example. It was Namecoin. Well, whatever it is, right? If you have a coin, the reason why coins don't want to use the same mining algorithm as Bitcoin is because if you are running a pretty damn good Bitcoin mining operation and you have an inferior coin using the same algorithm, the owner of that mining operation will probably write a little script that says, hey, tomorrow, is it cheaper for me to mine, is it more effective for me to mine Bitcoin or destroy some inferior coin, right? So because Bitcoin doesn't have something more valuable than Bitcoin, and it goes on down, right? Like if an inferior coin is using Dash's mining algorithm, and there is a big Dash mining operation, that guy is going to say, hey, I'm going to move my mining gear to 51% attack something with the same mining algorithm, and I'm going to move that money into Dash, right? So Dash has this worry that someone running a major Bitcoin mining operation can simply flip a switch, 51% attack Dash, and convert it into a more superior store of value. Bitcoin doesn't have that attack vector.
So it seems like there's a lot of security in being the biggest gorilla of that particular mining algorithm. As in, since Bitcoin's the big SHA-256, there's no one who has more hash power on smaller things.
Right. And this is why Dash has to... Okay, this is the excuse, right? This is the excuse of the masternode creators. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Let's say they created the masternodes for security purposes and not to make money out of thin air for themselves because they were no longer competitive in mining, right? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm playing my own devil's advocate. I think it's ridiculous. I personally think masternodes is a way for, the insta miners of Dash to just make more money for themselves so they can, promote Dash with free money. But if they did do it for strategic technological purposes, Bitcoin doesn't have that attack vector because no one is bigger is going to attack them, because even if Bitmain 51% attacks Bitcoin, their company dies. Confidence in Bitcoin as a store of value dies. Confidence in all blockchains as a store of value dies.
Yeah.
If all my savings disappear because they're in Bitcoin, am I still going to use crypto? I don't care if it's Dash. I don't care if it's Bcash. I don't care if it's like, I don't know, BitConnect if it comes back, right? I don't care what I'm using as a medium of exchange. The moment someone pays me a consulting fee for my services, hell, they can pay me in Venezuelan bolivars as long as I can instantly convert them to the US dollar, because that's going to be my store of value, or maybe gold, but probably the S&P 500. If I did not have Bitcoin as a store of value, I would instantly convert my Dash into US dollars. I would instantly move those US dollars to my broker, and I would buy the S&P 500, because that would be my store of value, because it's completely inflation protected.
So it seems like Bitcoin's value proposition relies on being number one. And unfortunately, it looks like there's been some threats to that. Obviously, Bitcoin's market dominance has gone down, down, down over time. Some coins have had higher transaction volumes, etc. And Bitcoin Cash seems to have been a big threat, and a lot of Bitcoiners seem to acknowledge that we have something that's basically the same thing to a great degree, but did not run into the problems. Well, you have something that has the same distribution, the same basic technology, all that kind of stuff, the same name for a lot of, which there is a little bit of a ridiculous naming conflict there.
It's a slight tangent. I actually have not talked about my dinner with fake Satoshi Craig Wright.
Yeah.
I hung out with him. It was a group dinner. It wasn't just one-on-one. It wasn't a date.
Wow.
It was. I was going to London.
Yeah.
And one of the guys in London has a big WhatsApp group and Telegram group, and he organized a little dinner for me. And for the hell of it, he invited Craig Wright, assuming with 99% confidence Craig Wright was going to say no, but Craig Wright said yes. So I was sitting next to Craig Wright at a dinner for about 16 people. And other than he is as much of a Bitcoin maximalist for what he thinks is Bitcoin as I am for what I know is Bitcoin. Other than that, we had a great conversation, because on everything else in crypto, we're pretty much in sync.
Yeah, which is...
And I didn't mind his... I really wasn't bothered by his arrogance and attitude. We pretty much got along, other than we...
Is that because it equaled yours?
No, it was way higher than mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but hey, we had a great chat.
Dr. Wright is an overachiever in that department.
Yeah. We had a great chat about why Ethereum is an unlicensed, unregistered security for about 20 minutes. I mean, that was awesome. So me and him had like 90% of the things we are actually in agreement on.
Did he set you up a Bitcoin Cash wallet?
No, but anyway, it was actually...
He's a terrible salesperson.
I enjoyed the evening, to be honest with you guys. Like obviously I disagree. He's not Satoshi. I know he's not Satoshi. He knows he's not Satoshi, right? There was no reason to kill a great argument as to why Ethereum was a scam over him not being Satoshi. It just wasn't worth it to be.
Of course. So we run into this problem of you have a lot of people that believe Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin, and they start saying it is, et cetera, et cetera. You have the same basic functionality, name, distribution, all the other kind of stuff as Bitcoin, as it is just a copy pretty much with a couple tweaks, except it has not yet run into those trade clearing problems that Bitcoin Core did, which unfortunately, or fortunately, unfortunately, whatever, caused its market share to go down, caused its acceptance to go down, caused people to go into other projects. And so there is a real risk that Bitcoin, in its imperfect state of not having yet or quickly enough for being so popular, right? We could blame the popularity too. Did not figure out transactional scaling quickly enough and got severely damaged as this digital gold standard. Now, what happens if you have something like Bitcoin Cash gains enough traction to where now you do have that super majority of hash power, and now you're, especially because Bitcoin Cash has a very sort of almost, and obviously you won't mind me triggering them by saying this, but apologies in advance. It's kind of a parasitic relationship to Bitcoin Core in that it survives through killing the host.
I'm not. You lost me a little bit there.
Because Bitcoin Cash is supposed to be the real Bitcoin, the best Bitcoin, the one that wins.
According to them, sure.
Yes, and so
what do you think?
By winning, I don't think that means anything, honestly. A We can get to that in just a second.
I think it means a lot.
Let me finish that point of Bitcoin Cash grows by Bitcoin Core dying. It's kind of, that's the relationship.
They think it does.
You disagree?
I completely disagree.
So
Bitcoin
how does it grow?
Cash dies with Bitcoin dying.
And how does it grow? What does success look like for them? What's the success scenario?
The success for Bcash is similar to success for Overstock.com versus Amazon. Now, Overstock.com can continue to grow at a slightly higher percentage every year than Amazon, but the quantity of people using Amazon will outpace it. So you follow me? So
yes. So let me see if I get that straight. So that means that Bitcoin Cash grows as being the alternative Bitcoin, and the stronger Bitcoin gets, even if Bitcoin Cash is not as strong as a percentage, it grows by being the alternative. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
So what I'm saying is, the only success Bcash has is by hanging around. I meant the other way. Sorry, slower percentage.
Yeah.
Is by hanging around and growing at a slightly slower percentage than Bitcoin is growing. And because Bitcoin is already bigger, if you are already bigger, right? Right now, Bitcoin is by price alone, by the price metric. Bitcoin is, I think Bcash is like maybe 13% of the value of a Bitcoin, right? So that means that Bitcoin is 87% more useful than Bcash, assuming we use price as a metric, which is not fair, but let's stick to that, right? So Bcash can continue to grow at a lower percentage than Bitcoin. So this year, it's the average of price of Bcash this year is 13% to Bitcoin. The average price of Bcash next year is 12%. The year after that, 11.5% of Bitcoin. So you can see how the amount of people using Bcash continues to grow, but at a slower rate than the amount of people using Amazon. They're using Bitcoin. The way Amazon continues to grow faster than a small company like Overstock, which does exactly the same thing, right? There might be little niches, right? Like, hey, the sheets are always cheaper on Overstock than Amazon. So people can buy their sheets on Overstock, but in reality, I'm not going to go and create an Overstock account just for sheets. Most people will not need that little saving, right? So Overstock continues to exist. Overstock isn't going bankrupt, but Amazon continues to separate. Now, again, in the case of the Overstock and Amazon, they're both companies, right? So people can easily switch investments.
Yeah.
This is currencies, right? If people lose confidence in Bitcoin as a store of value, why on earth would you trust Bcash as a store of value? Because then when Roger Ver finally ends his relationship with Craig Wright, because fake Satoshi and Jihan Wu are already not on good terms, right? What is stopping Bcash from splitting again? And then you have the same thing all over again. Where do you store your money? Bcash dies as a store of value. I mean, they don't want to be store of value. They want to be the Venezuelan currency of transactions.
That sounds like the same thing that happened to Bitcoin. And if it can happen to Bitcoin's clone, it can also happen again to Bitcoin.
Well, no. You're taking the analogy the opposite direction. If it happens to Bitcoin clone, that's fine. If it happens to Bitcoin, then its clone is even at a higher risk. Like if Bitcoin couldn't maintain the store of value property, the probability over its successor maintaining the store of value property is significantly smaller.
So let's take a hypothetical situation here where, the way we stand, let's say for the sake of this argument, that if Bitcoin goes away, it destroys the reputation of blockchain-based currencies and their value will not be stored and it sucks and everything goes kaput. What happens if say you have some currency, let's just say Dash because we've been talking about Dash, that uses people using Dash use US dollars as a store of value, and they're just using Dash as a payments technology.
Right.
And during that time, you have a cataclysmic collapse where Bitcoin goes down and all the other coins go down because the store of value is done and no one cares about crypto anymore, and all dies. Dash is still being used not as a store of value, the price might have gone to nothing, but it's still being used as a trade clearing mechanism. Now you have a world where now there is no Bitcoin, there's just Dash. And then some people are like, hey, guess what? I can store this value. If I keep it in Dash, no one can seize my bank account, I can keep it, no one's gonna double spend it, I can't get, and then all of a sudden you have something that does the exact same things as Bitcoin did with better trade clearing, whatever. It's still there. Don't you think that would become a new store of value in a vacuum like Bitcoin did?
I don't think so, because for starters, you would have to prove that your developers are more competent than the Bitcoin core developers.
Yeah, so define...
Can you name some developers of Dash? I can't, so can you?
Yeah, Alex Werner.
Werner, what has he done before Dash? Do you know?
I'm not into the past. I can't tell you
That's fine.
what any of the Bitcoin developers did before that either.
I want to throw the names out there so that at least my audience and the live audience and the crypto show audience, so they know the names. Okay, so Alex Werner, what else you got?
Joshua Siegler's running around here somewhere. You can go talk to him.
Shouldn't he be developing and not hanging out at a place with no internet? Sorry, bad joke.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all have to go to the bathroom sometimes. We all have to go eat sometimes. We all have to go have a good time sometimes. But yeah.
Anybody else?
Yes, the anonymous developer Mukau Mu. And let's see, what was it? Andy Freer, Alexander Block. Yeah, there's a bit. In fact, Dash has about like 70 developers right now. It's a very expansive team right now. So yeah, you can go look at who develops for Bitcoin Core. Let me start naming off the top of my head. I remember Peter Todd. He doesn't do that anymore though.
He's more of he keeps the Bitcoin developers in check. He tells them he tells them all the stupid stuff that they do.
Let's see. I heard Adam Back. Does he still do that? I know.
Adam Back has never touched code.
Okay, so there we go. I thought he was
There's a reason for that.
I thought he was a code developer. Never mind. Who do we get to? Who's that other guy?
Greg Maxwell.
Luke Jr. Does he develop fun?
He definitely develops.
All right. So there's that guy.
Yeah, Luke Jr. is one of the extreme guys.
Yeah.
But hey, I was with them on the user activated software stuff. I'm all right. Have some sunflower seeds.
So I'm good for now. Thanks. I'm already dry in the throat as it is.
Yeah, me too. It'd be nice to get a bottle of water.
So
or a glass of water.
Yeah. So that's about all I know. There might be people and that also fuels a little bit of a weird debate where people are all talking. Usually smack about the core developers not knowing who they even are.
I mean, like the top guys that right now that are actually coding are Vladimir Vanderland and Peter Willa have the most lines of commits. Corey Fields is up there. Matt Corello is up there.
Andrew Polstra.
Andrew Polstra is up there. Gregory Maxwell is still up there. Eric Lombroso took a little break after he got burned out getting the SegWit in. Alex Marcos. I mean, those are the guys off the top of my head.
Yeah.
There's others. BTC Drac. He's one of our anonymous guys. And a lot of these guys, like, they came from, like, some of the what's his name? From Linux. Rusty Russell. Plus the Lightning devs. They're core devs, maybe.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys, like, they are not, they've programmed privacy tools. They programmed Linux. They programmed, Matt Corello was working on Signal app. Like, a lot of these guys are, pretty hardcore privacy guys.
Yeah.
And very experienced.
So the average Bitcoin user or of any kind probably has no clue who these guys are or their past experience, their resumes.
I agree.
What they do know is the open source code that is, ostensibly rock solid. That it's not, the appeal to authority doesn't exactly work because it's not Bitcoin's appeal to authority about look at these great people involved, we trust them, because that's not what a trustless system is. That's not what a decentralized trustless system is.
You know what? Like, this was my argument with Roger Ver. In that, like, you don't have to trust a single core developer, but you do have to trust that these core developers check each other's code. And the more core developers you have that are clearly in very public disagreements with each other, and the more their experience has, and the more of them are checking each other's code for competency, the more confidence you have in that code. So like I'm not gonna trust like one nuclear scientist to build a nuclear reactor next to my house. But 15 nuclear scientists who check each other's work, I will trust to build that nuclear reactor next to my house.
Now,
Maybe.
that's a good thing about open source code is then you can actually, you don't have to limit yourself to one single group of people. You can limit yourself to the entire world. And we've actually found that to be a little bit...
Ah, sweet. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Yeah. You're the best, thanks.
I knew
I'll
you'd get
tip you
my
in
little
Dash.
hint.
But so think
I
about...
hope you converted immediately to a better store of value.
Go for it. But think about this.
I have a question coming up. So
Yes, there's a couple. There's a couple great people who have zero kind of background like that, who've done phenomenal things for cryptocurrency, who I just know off the top of my head, and because they're probably too young for that. There's a fellow, I forget his actual name, because his Twitter handle keeps changing, but he's a 15-year-old kid who keeps breaking hardware wallets.
Is that the guy that broke Ledger?
Yep. He's 15 years old. He's this kid. He doesn't have a history. Well, I mean, now he does because he's done a lot of this before, but he's just some kid. He doesn't have years in the industry. He doesn't do whatever. And he was able to do what a bunch of other people were not able to. And then a friend of mine, Pasta, is a developer. He's 16 years old. He develops for some Dash-related projects, and he's found some bugs in the main Dash code and taken advantage of the bug bounty. And so there are...
finding bugs in code that's actually functioning is not a good sign. You do know that, right?
Well, I mean, it happens. It happened to every single major currency. It happened to Bitcoin quite a few times. And that's the unfortunate problem is you can't do everything in testnet. There's a lot of stuff that you don't know how it's going to react until you hit it in the real world, until you vigorously try to break it and destroy it. For example, how do we know that Bitcoin's not going to fill up with transactions? And then I haven't looked into the details of the spam attacks, but apparently you're able to send a bunch of inputs, a bunch of clogged up inputs, and mess up some addresses, so now when you try to move balances out, it's much more expensive. So that I would call, I'm not sure if it's a bug, but it's a weakness. And for example, there was a wallet I was using just today that when you want to display your recovery seed, you have to enter in a PIN, and you press the OK button, it goes away. And like you can never go in there because there's a show button you have to hit instead. And that's a complete nightmare to have to do, and it confuses a lot of people.
That's bad UI.
Yeah, but you figure that out once you actually take it for a spin. And that's the thing. That's what the free market does. There is no testnet for the free market. The free market is all bugs are discovered on the mainnet. And that's exactly what,
Right, but you can keep that to a minimum. Oh, Danny, you had a...
Yes.
You had a question.
And that's how I discovered the bug in Bitcoin. That's how I discovered the bug in Bitcoin probably a year before anyone else did, because I was rigorously mainnet testing it as
you discovered a bug in Bitcoin?
The bug being down the line's not going to scale. I found
you discovered that bug?
Well, I'm not the only one. I'm maybe not the first one, but I'm one of the first ones by rigorously using it, by realizing, the fees are high. No one's going to use this as a trade clearing system in the near future. And then when you hit the $30 fees, etc., that was kind of a year ahead of that, which is why so many people, for example, in Bitcoin Cash, don't know too much about Dash, because they were still holding on to Bitcoin because they didn't actively use it enough on the mainnet, right? And now they think that Bitcoin Cash is the spendable Bitcoin, because they missed the Dash boat because they weren't actually using it to begin with. And so that's where you run into that.
I want to get Danny in here.
Go for it, Danny.
The question I have is,
speak up a little bit louder, because my
obviously the price of all these altcoins are going up and down with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
How dependent upon Bitcoin's price is Dash?
Well, how dependent on Bitcoin's price is Dash's price?
Yeah.
probably pretty dependent. And we've seen this kind of go in reverse in a few times. For example, there have been times when there have been Ethereum problems and that have crashed Ethereum. I mean, have crashed Bitcoin's price because people were trying to get out of Ethereum by throwing it into Bitcoin and then selling the Bitcoin. And I believe Charlie Shrem was tweeting about this. He was very upset that people were doing that. But yes, for the most part, it starts at the top and then goes down, mostly because of this sort of maximalist mentality of, well, we only need trading pairs for one. We only need exchanges supporting for one. We only need liquidity on one. And that ended up being a flaw for the entire rest of the ecosystem, was not being coin agnostic. And you've seen the market has been adapting. BitPay has multiple options now. Coinbase used to just be Bitcoin Core, and now
yeah,
there's a bunch of others.
But it's more profit driven for them, right? Like that's profit driven. I mean, Coinbase has changed their business model from being a Bitcoin middleman to being a shitcoin exchange. I mean, it's a business decision.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
it's not a help society decision. It's a business decision.
Well, I mean, to be fair, pretty much everything is like a profit mode because we are literally in the business of making money.
We are. However, I do run my miner at a loss. Well, I don't because I happen to run it in a place where I have free electricity. But even if I didn't have free electricity, I would run my miner at a loss to support the decentralization of Bitcoin. Now, I know my one miner doesn't do much.
You have one miner on slush pool. How does that affect the decentralization? The only way you're affecting that is if you're solo mining.
Well, no, not at all. I choose which pool I'm going to have. And if slush pool is approaching 51%, I will move it to another pool, right? Like along with the level.
What if the only choice is ant pool? Then what?
No, that won't happen. That wouldn't happen.
But yeah, I agree with that. There's a kind of a misconception that decentralization means everyone has to run a thing, rather than it has to be split up enough that one or two or a few all colluding or going offline doesn't wreck the whole thing. But like, yeah, for example, mining on slush pool does help decentralization, even if it's not everyone's mining.
Wait, I was gonna go somewhere with this. Like, look, I don't even know how. I mean, your question was, I don't even care how dependent Dash is on Bitcoin. All I know economically is that if Dash wins, we all lose. If Bcash wins, we all lose. Because I believe the store of value property will disappear from blockchains, at least for a full generation. Like, our kids might see it differently, but for a full generation, that will be gone. It will set us back a decade or two in the store of value property, which is the most important property. In addition, with Dash winning, the creators of Dash are public people. The people like Evan Duffield, is he still involved?
Not directly, no. He's running a group called Dash Labs. He's not part of the core team right now. Right. So he's off doing future-related research.
So here's the thing, right?
No one's we get messages once in a while, but he's
oh, you can definitely find him.
Well, I mean, one
you can easily find him. like the FBI can easily find him tomorrow, right? Like, he's a public person. Like, one of the reasons why a lot of these altcoins, like Litecoin has a creator and a leader, Ethereum a creator and a leader, Dash a creator and a leader, maybe not a leader so much these days, but a creator and a leader, and by succeeding, that leader becomes a criminal, right? I mean, we all disagree with the fact that creating competing money is criminal, but creating competing money is pretty much criminal, right? Like,
so they kind of.
So why do you want to do that?
Well, I mean, that kind of.
And
that kind of runs against the point of developers, also known as creators, now trying to be public and trusted and have all this kind of stuff. It's like they should be completely anonymous. You should not know how many Bitcoin developers there are, what their names are, what their backgrounds are. It should all be completely anonymous then, right? It sounds like that's what you're saying now.
Well, I'm saying that it helps a lot when your creator is anonymous, when your original developer is anonymous. because in this case, you know, that is an attack vector. And it may discourage a lot of people if the masterminds of Dash, which are public people, you know, get taken down.
Yeah, I mean, it is like it's a purely speculative market signal, though. Sort of like, I mean, obviously Vitalik develops actively, as far as I last saw. Again, I'm not big into Ethereum knowledge, but it actually does have an impact. So, for example, what would happen to the price of Bitcoin if someone, say, took out Luke Jr. and Greg Maxwell? Someone found them up, rounded them up, tortured them, whatever. No, let's not get too crazy. But what happens if every current known Bitcoin Core developer got somehow arrested? What would happen to the price of Bitcoin then?
It would probably drop on a loss of confidence. Now here's the thing, right? Unlike Vitalik, something bad like that happening to a key core developer, it would not, like, nobody would actually believe that this would make the code of Bitcoin any less inferior, right? So, like, for example, you can coerce Vitalik to do something bad to the code, and it'll probably get in the system. You can't coerce a single Bitcoin Core developer to get something bad into the code, right? So the code will stay stable. There will be some fear in the system that it will drop. However, if the Bitcoin key core developers are removed from the system, it becomes almost impossible to make any changes to Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin cannot make any more significant changes than the underlying protocol, and thank God SegWit is already in. At this point, if not a single change happens to Bitcoin and the underlying protocol, I still think Bitcoin is the future. Because at this point, all scaling can be done on a second layer solution because of SegWit. SegWit was so important. And at this point, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If Bitcoin, if there is no new Bitcoin client, it'll be fine. It'll actually prove, it'll be a small time panic in price, and then people will realize, oh, wait a minute. At this point, nothing will probably change ever again. No one will ever be able to get any changes in. That's it. The code is locked in place forever. You don't have to worry about the potential of 21 million Bitcoin being changed, the mining reward being changed, bigger blocks, smaller blocks. It's over. Bitcoin code is locked down, which will eventually lead to insane confidence in Bitcoin as a store of value.
Yeah, so...
And Lightning Network can handle the microtransactions.
Now, the challenge with that is...
Try buying pizza that way.
We're trying to...
With Lightning? Yeah. In about a year and a half? Sure.
It doesn't work now.
The problem
No, it doesn't work now. But I don't need it to work now.
Yeah, the problem...
I might not need it to work ever.
So the problem is, you might run into problems down the road. And there have been problems in... I wouldn't even call them problems as in, oh, it was broken at the time, but... There have been continual changes and improvements, etc., to the Bitcoin code over the last nearly decade. That's why core developers exist. And I'm not necessarily sold on SegWit, but the fact that it was an important thing, that was really recent history. There was like 7 years of Bitcoin being a store of value before that was ever kind of coming around. And so these things, it's like the problem with having a dead code base, or as I should call it, pre-2017 Litecoin. The problem with having a dead code base is that you roll the dice on did you get enough in before you capped it off. And that is a significant problem. That's why I think that cryptocurrencies need to be constantly developed on. There might be a situation where maybe the optimal block size for Bitcoin is 8 megabytes because the amount of payment channels needed to open.
Speaking of block size, what is Dash block size? 2 megabytes.
2 megabytes, 2.5 minute block interval.
Okay. So
it was a long drawn out process too.
So, I mean, if
24 hours.
If Dash had, that's why. If Dash had if Dash became the global payment method, you know that's not going to be enough, right? What's your second layer scaling solution?
Well,
or you're going to raise the block size.
Raise it, continue to raise it, and continue to figure out how to make.
Who decides to raise the block size?
Well, it turns out that the masternodes decided that was the decision they wanted to pursue. That was the whole Bitcoin scaling debate was, I don't know how many years, at least 3 or 4.
About 3 years.
Yeah, about 3. Let's just say about 3. It was about.
And the only reason why debate even started is because Gavin and Andreessen started yapping about it when it wasn't even a problem.
Well, I guess call the man a prophet because it became a problem.
He made it a problem.
Oh, just by talking about it?
Yeah.
Well.
And the work on fixing the problem got grossly delayed by 5 attacks. Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Unlimited, Bitcoin ABC, eventually Bitcoin Cash. They finally hard forked, right? I mean, like all of that effort to delay an actual solution, and when the solution was finally arriving, they hard forked anyway.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a scary prospect in trying to trust Bitcoin because of how slow that process took. And Dash's decision on, well, which way should we try to scale took all of about 24 hours. So, of course, the voting cycle took a little longer than that. But, yeah, it would just put it towards the masternodes. Hey, how should we, you guys who own so much of Dash, how should we proceed? Should we raise the block size, yes or no? And they said yes. And so that was decided January 2016, and it wasn't until later of last year that the block size finally
but you do realize the problem, like, hey, the rich guy, where do you think we should go? You have the most amount of money. How should we do this? Right?
No.
This is masternodes, right? I mean, like, hey, you have the most Dash. You make the decision on what we're going to do next. This is like the king system.
Well,
the king with the most money has the most at stake, and he has to make sure that he's running the proper tax system so that people don't revolt against him, and he makes all the decisions. And
yeah,
if he wants to confiscate your money, he will.
Yes, except the king doesn't own everything. He has some of it and then arbitrarily decides through force to take everything else. This is more like every single unit of Dash in the network votes, and the most Dash votes. And that doesn't, and for example, a person can have 1,000 Dash in a masternode. Some people can have multiple masternodes. Multiple people, and I know some of them, just walking around here, in fact, are a multiple person masternodes as well.
What percentage of... Okay, so how much Dash is out there in existence?
About 8 million right now.
About 8 million out of 21.
18. It's
Well-
more like 18.
Well, in total, there would be 21, right?
No.
No. Why?
It's close to 21. It's a diminishing return over time. And based on how much... So when treasury funds are created, then...
Treasury funds?
Yes, the 10% for the treasury. When the treasury is created for proposals, it's only created for the proposals that actually get funded. So if there's nothing to pay, those coins don't get created. So there's always a little bit of variability in how much what's the exact number of Dash there's going to be.
All right, fine.
However, it's about 18 million.
And you're burning money. Okay. 18 million Dash will be created. About 8 million is there now. Approximately how much of the 8 million currently in circulation is in masternodes? About
60%.
60%. So
yes,
we're going to say about 5 million out of 8 million is locked up in masternodes.
Now, I would dispute the calling it locked up because it makes it seem like it can't be moved. When it can be moved, same as any other transaction.
Oh yeah, you can move it anytime.
Yeah. So, and for example, do we count Satoshi's hoard as locked up? Do we count your savings as locked up? And what percentage of Bitcoin is locked up? That would be an interesting statistic I'd like to have on hand.
Sure. So, fine. Staked in masternodes. Better?
Possibly, or associated with masternodes. That's
wait a minute. To
works.
me, masternodes is a proof of stake system, right? You stake your coins to earn more coins. And you get to vote.
So there's a little bit of confusion on exactly what to call it, and honestly, you can call something whatever you want. I don't care about what the name is. It's been called a proof of service system because masternodes are not paid to hold coins. They're paid to run the node. The collateral is just a part of that.
Yeah, but isn't that automated?
No, you have to keep your node online. You have to. In fact, they're going to split this year the masternode key from just a single key into 3: a collateral key, which is the holding of the funds; the voting key, which is the vote; and the operator key. And the operator needs that key to run the node, keep the node up, make sure it's processing. If the node goes down, then the payments stop.
Okay, well, we're talking about semantics. I was just going to say,
semantics,
okay,
yeah.
so out of that, let's say, out of the 6 million dash in masternodes,
Yeah, probably like 5. You know, it's
is there an estimate?
4.8, let's say.
So
that's more like it.
So each masternode is 1,000 even, right?
Yep.
So let's say 5 million. 5 million masternodes divided by 1,000. What are we talking about? 5,000?
It's 4,800.
Yeah.
5,000.
Yeah, you can round up.
5,000 masternodes. Any idea how many people own 5,000 masternodes? Obviously, it's not more than 5,000
Yes.
people, right? It's going to be less.
Yes. So
ballpark. Your
here
best
is-
guess, or
Now-
has anyone tried
Well-
to analyze?
the answer to that thing is absolutely. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, with pseudonymous, or because anonymous means you completely cannot associate anything. Pseudonymous currencies like Bitcoin, where it's extremely public. Bitcoin's one of the most transparent systems in the world, and same with Dash, because it's just all out there. Now, you can't necessarily verifiably say who owns what or how many people own what. You can, however, get a very good picture of it, right? So, for example, you can look at the Bitcoin rich list. How many addresses, what percent of the coin supply is in the top 10 addresses? What percent is in this much? You can kind of see all that stuff. And as far as that's concerned, Dash is probably about as well or better distributed than Bitcoin, if you take that. Now, there is a supervillain world somewhere in the multiverse, right, where one person, let's just say Evan Duffield, controls, because he's got crazy psychic powers, he controls every single Dash address, including the ones on my phone, etc. So even though it's a very well distributed ecosystem, he controls every single address. The same world is where Tone Vays does the same thing in Bitcoin, but it's probably not true, right? So that being said, there is upcoming research that I've looked at it ahead of time, and I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be published. You remind me, I have to get back to the guy about it. You were able to sort of associate masternode clustering based on voting patterns, because no one really just votes one key and then has a completely different vote on the other one. A lot of people vote in blocks, and so again, that's not necessarily an ironclad system, and it doesn't account for multiple people.
Ballpark number.
Multiple people owning
Best
one.
guess.
I believe the average was the average masternode owner owns 1.2 nodes.
Okay, so that means we're dropping 20%. So out of 5,000 nodes, there are 4,000 people.
Something like that. It's 4,000 entities. Again, that's not counting the under, because 10 people owning one node does not show up on that. It's only the only upper limit. So
Yeah, but I think I think there are more people that own 10 master nodes than 10 people owning one.
I would agree at this point. There's probably not very many masternodes are owned by more than one person, just because of how difficult it is with just one key. That will change in the future, but yeah,
All right.
that's pretty.
So
about 4,000.
my thing is, out of the 4,000 people that own at least one master node, how many of them vote?
Depends on when. It's been 2/3 of them. Sometimes it's been, some proposals, it's 10%. So it is a wide range, and that's the thing. And having dealt with the ecosystem for a long time, I have talked to a bunch of masternode owners who say, "Oh, that one's gonna pass, or that one's not gonna pass. I'm not gonna vote on it." So it's hard to see how many people are participating in the voting process versus how many people are doing the actual votes. And the inclusion of abstain votes has kind of put a little bit higher of a percentage of that, but it's still not quite perfect. In fact, there was a masternode owner on this proposal that he didn't like, He just says, I never vote. Like, I haven't voted in years, but I'm voting, but I watch everything. And I came in because I didn't like the outcome and I wanted to switch it.
Right. Like, the point is that just like in real voting, the minority is actually voting.
Yes. Or as in the participatory minorities voting.
Right. And this is where the voting systems generally don't do a good job. I'm actually good. I don't know if there's any other questions. I think we've got on for over an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, actually, I don't mind doing that myself.
Yes.
I think we're gonna.
Tone Vays scammed my pants out of staying clean.
I know. I think we're gonna pretty much end it here. I've been also drinking alcohol already all day. I will, however, like for 1 second. Wait a minute. Let me. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna pull up. I will, however, mention that I like this article, but I was very disappointed in the fact that, so this is one of your articles. I'm going to do a screen share real quick.
Oh, I remember that one.
So this is the 5 biggest haters in crypto, 5 biggest Dash haters in cryptocurrency. And I'm still upset that Ricardo Spangy is a bigger Dash hater than me, who came in number 2 on the list. And that was your article. And Ricardo Spangy, damn it, Fluffy, I gotta beat you on the next go around.
You know what to do. I'm watching you. If you tweet out, hey, Dash isn't half bad, and leave it up for 24 hours, I will correct the article and put you at the bottom of the list, and Tone gets to be the king of the Dash hate.
So Charlie came in number 3, Peter Todd came in number 4, and Gregory Maxwell came in number 5. Like, to be honest, like if I'm on this list, it's a pretty damn good list to be on in general.
Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. But yeah, so there you go. So if you guys want to see work by Joel Valenzuela, there it is, the 5 biggest Dash haters, and you write most of the articles on Dash Force News?
It used to be almost all of them. Now it's less than the majority because I have a highly competent writer, Justin, who's running around the campground as well. And by the way, we're still working while we're running around the campground. We can do both at the same time.
All right, guys. So on this note, thank you so much for watching. This was another episode of On the Record, co-hosted by the Crypto Show. So you can also check out, you have the audio podcast as well?
Yeah, thecryptoshow.com or any of the radio stations that we're going to be in.
All right, cool. And later today, I will be debating somebody from Bcash. Who am I debating?
Bcash?
Yeah, it's Chris Pacia.
Chris Pacia,
back-end developer of Open Bazaar.
Okay, I may or may not stream that live. I have to figure out where we're debating and if I can get signal. Yes, so we'll be debating that, and here may or may not be streamed. But other than that, hey, thank you for hanging in here. This was a discussion on altcoins. I mean, I was kind of, I wasn't really hostile, but like to me, it makes no sense. I think I made an economic point. But yeah, there you go. So this was just another. This is what I've been going through here.
Tip, Tone, and Dash. What's your Dash address?
I don't have a Dash address, guys. I don't have a Dash wallet.
We're gonna set him one up.
Yeah.
You know what? You're gonna have a permanent shapeshift address to where it's a Dash address, and as soon as it gets sent, every single time it gets shapeshifted into Bitcoin.
All right. I don't see the point of that. But hey, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.
Stay dashy.